The great crystal halls of Zenthari Prime sparkled under the light of twin suns as ships from across the galaxy landed on the floating platforms. Today was the day of the annual Galactic Council meeting, where the 7 most powerful civilizations would gather to discuss trade, wars, and the growing threat that kept everyone awake at night. Admiral Kethvar of the Altarian Navy walked through the massive doors, his 4 arms carrying data tablets filled with battle reports. His blue skin showed the stress lines that came from months of fighting an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. Behind him, other representatives filed in, some floating, some walking on multiple legs, some phasing in and out of visibility. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, with seats that adjusted to accommodate every type of alien physiology. Holographic displays showed star maps where red zones marked the areas now controlled by the enemy. Those red zones grew larger every day. My fellow council members, Admiral Kethvar began as he took his place at the central podium. We face our darkest hour. The Vrek swarm has consumed 3 more star systems this month alone. Their bioships adapt to every weapon we throw at them. Our combined fleets are losing badly. Ambassador Zixara of the Nexus Collective chittered nervously, her insect-like features twitching. Our quantum disruptors had no effect. They simply absorbed the energy and grew stronger. High Commander Throsk slammed his massive fist on the table, making the smaller representatives jump. His warrior race had never backed down from any fight, but even he looked worried. My best soldiers were consumed by those creatures, turned into part of their hive mind within minutes. The mood in the chamber grew heavy. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced an enemy they might not be able to defeat. The Vrek swarm was unlike anything they had encountered before, a race of creatures that literally ate other civilizations and used their knowledge to become stronger. Admiral Kethvar cleared his throat and looked around the room. There is something else I want to discuss, something that might give us hope, though many of you will think I have lost my mind. He activated a holographic display showing ancient star charts covered in symbols that looked almost artistic. These are copies of the oldest records we have found, dating back over 5,000 years. They tell stories of a race called humans, from a small world they called Earth, in a system designated Sol 3. Several representatives began to murmur among themselves. The ethereal seers of Luminos, beings made of pure energy, flickered with what might have been amusement. According to these legends, Admiral Kethvar continued, the humans were the first race to master space travel in our galaxy. They built ships that could bend space itself and fought wars on a scale we can barely imagine. The stories say they vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only whispers and myths. Ambassador Zixara's chittering turned into what sounded like laughter. Admiral, surely you cannot be serious. Ancient myths and legends? We are facing a real threat, not chasing ghost stories. High Commander Throsk's deep voice boomed across the chamber. I have heard these tales too. My people tell stories of phantom ships that could appear and disappear at will, but they are just stories told to entertain children. No single race could have possessed such power. The seers of Luminos pulsed with brighter light as their representative spoke in a voice like wind chimes. We have studied the quantum echoes of ancient space battles. There are indeed traces of technologies we do not understand, but they are fragments, shadows of the past. Even if these humans existed, they are clearly long gone. Other representatives began to voice their opinions. Some laughed openly at the idea of seeking help from mythical beings. Others pointed out that if such a powerful race had existed, surely they would have left more than just stories behind. Admiral Kethvar held up his hands for silence. I know how it sounds, but we have tried everything else. Our best scientists, our most advanced weapons, our greatest military minds. Nothing works against the Vreks. Maybe it is time to consider that the old stories might contain some truth. The laughter in the chamber grew louder. Ambassador Zixara stood up, her voice dripping with mockery. So your plan is to pray to mythical beings to save us? Perhaps we should also wish upon stars and hope for magic to solve our problems. Even some of Admiral Kethvar's own people looked embarrassed by his suggestion. The idea that primitive folklore could help them against an enemy that had defeated their most advanced technology seemed ridiculous. Suddenly, every alarm in the chamber began to sound at once. Emergency lights bathed the crystal walls in red, as holographic displays updated with new information. The representatives watched in horror as 3 more star systems on the map turned red. "The Vrex have launched their largest attack yet," announced the chamber's AI system. "All remaining Outer Rim colonies are under assault. Projected time until they reach the core worlds, 72 hours. The laughter stopped immediately. The reality of their situation crashed down on them like a physical weight. They were running out of time, running out of options, and running out of hope. As panic began to spread through the chamber, deep space sensors detected something unusual. Massive energy signatures were moving through hyperspace toward the battle zone. The signatures were unlike anything in their databases, following patterns that seemed to ignore the known laws of physics. But nobody was paying attention to those readings yet. They were too busy arguing about their next move, unaware that their mockery of ancient legends was about to become their salvation. Dr. Lee Hyun knelt in the red sand of the Gobi Desert, carefully brushing dust away from a crystal structure that hummed with inner light. The artifact was one of hundreds scattered across Earth, remnants of something ancient that most people preferred to ignore. His colleagues at Seoul University thought he was wasting his time studying what they called pretty rocks. But Lee Hyun knew these crystals were much more than decorations. The structure pulsed gently under his touch, warm like living skin despite being made of what looked like frozen starlight. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. He had spent 5 years trying to understand what these ruins meant, why they were scattered across every continent on Earth. Most humans lived simple, peaceful lives in cities that blended perfectly with nature. They grew their food in vertical gardens, powered their homes with clean energy, and believed their ancestors' stories about galactic empires were nothing more than entertaining myths. Earth was a paradise, and nobody wanted to think about the possibility that their peaceful world might once have been part of something much larger and more dangerous. Far above Earth's surface, hidden within massive structures that orbited beyond the moon, the truth waited in silence. The shipyards hung in space like sleeping giants, their surfaces dark and cold. They had been waiting for 3,000 years, maintained by artificial minds that never forgot their purpose. In the depths of the largest facility, quantum processors began to activate. The Admiralty, a collective of AI consciousness that had once commanded fleets spanning the entire galaxy, stirred from their long sleep. They had been monitoring deep space for signs of an ancient enemy, hoping they would never have to wake up. Fleet Admiral Park Jin was the first to fully activate. His holographic form appeared in the command center buried deep beneath Seoul, startling the night shift workers who had never seen the ancient systems come online. He looked exactly like the human admiral he had been based on, tall and dignified with graying hair and eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "Emergency protocols are now active," Park Jin announced to the empty room. His voice echoed off walls that hadn't heard speech in centuries. "All personnel report to stations immediately." Within minutes, people began arriving at the hidden facility. President Choi Dae rushed from his residence, still wearing his sleeping clothes. Dr. Kim Nari, Earth's lead expert on the mysterious ruins, arrived with her tablet full of research notes. General Yoon Tae brought his top military advisors, all of them confused about why the ancient warning systems had suddenly activated. "What's happening?" President Choi Dae asked as he stared at the holographic admiral. He had known about the AI systems, but they had been silent for so long that most people forgot they existed. Park Jin's expression was grave as he activated the main display. The screen showed readings from sensors scattered throughout the galaxy, sensors that most civilizations didn't even know existed. The gravitational wave detectors have picked up familiar signatures. The Vrex have returned. Dr. Kim Nari felt her blood turn cold. She had studied the ancient records, the fragments of history that spoke of humanity's greatest enemy. "Are you certain? The patterns could be from something else." "Negative," Park Jin replied. These signatures are unique to Vrex biotechnology. Their ships create specific distortions in space-time that cannot be mistaken for anything else. The Great Consuming has begun again. General Yun Tai stepped forward, his military training taking over despite the impossibility of the situation. What are our options? Do we have any defenses? Park Jin's form flickered as he diverted processing power to awakening systems throughout the solar system. The shipyards are coming online now. We have waited 3 millennia for this moment. Every contingency has been planned, every weapon prepared. High above them, the first of the great shipyards began to glow with inner fire. Asteroid belts that had seemed natural suddenly revealed their true purpose as raw materials began flowing into massive construction bays. The sound of awakening machinery echoed through space, a sound that hadn't been heard since humanity's golden age. Dr. Lee Hyun's communicator buzzed urgently as he worked in the desert. The message was simple, but terrifying. All xenoarchaeologists, report to command immediately. Code 77 Alpha. He knew that code meant only one thing: first contact with hostile aliens. As he packed his equipment, the crystal artifact beneath his hands began to pulse faster, its inner light growing brighter. Similar artifacts all over Earth were responding to the same signal, activating systems that had been dormant since before recorded history. President Choi Dae watched the main display as dots of light appeared throughout the solar system. Each dot represented a shipyard coming online, each one beginning to produce vessels of war. How many ships do we have? The first wave will consist of 1,200 vessels, Park Jin replied. Each one is more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations can produce. But the Vrex have had time to grow stronger too. We cannot be certain this will be enough. Dr. Kim Nari studied the energy readings flowing across her tablet. The numbers were beyond comprehension, representing power sources that could fuel entire star systems. How long until the fleet is ready? Park Jin's holographic form solidified as more processing power came online. Other AI admirals began to appear around him, their forms filling the command center with the ghosts of humanity's greatest military minds. The advance fleet will be ready within 6 hours, he announced. The main battle fleet will follow within 72 hours. After 3,000 years of preparation, humanity returns to the stars. Outside, people across Earth looked up at the night sky as points of light began to move among the stars. The age of hiding was over. The Kepler nexus burned with the light of 1,000 explosions as Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet die around him. His flagship shook violently as another Vrex bioship slammed into their shields, its living hull rippling with absorbed energy from their weapons. The creature was the size of a city, covered in pulsing veins that glowed with stolen power. Shield generators at 15%, his tactical officer shouted over the noise of failing systems. We cannot take much more of this. Through the main view screen, Admiral Kethvar could see the horror unfolding across the battlefield. The Vrex bioships moved like a school of hungry fish, each one perfectly coordinated with the others. When Council ships fired their most powerful weapons, the bioships simply absorbed the energy and grew larger. When they used quantum disruptors, the creatures adapted within minutes and became immune. Ambassador Zixara's voice crackled over the communication channel from her own dying ship. My vessel is being consumed. They are eating through the hull. Her screams cut off as her ship disappeared into the belly of a massive bioorganism that looked like a cross between a whale and a spider. High Commander Throsk's dreadnought, the pride of the Korthak Empire, fired its planet-killer cannon directly into the largest Vrex creature. The beam of concentrated antimatter should have vaporized anything it touched. Instead, the bioship absorbed the energy and split into 3 smaller but equally deadly organisms. All ships fall back to defensive positions, Admiral Kethvar commanded, knowing it was hopeless. His sensors showed over 300 Council vessels destroyed in the past hour alone. The Vrex swarm had barely lost a dozen ships, and those were quickly being replaced by new growth spawning from the larger creatures. The bioships were not just weapons. They were living ecosystems that could adapt to any threat. Their hulls were made of organic matter that could harden like diamond or flow like liquid. Their weapons were not machines but evolved organs that could change their function based on what they were fighting. Worst of all, they shared a collective consciousness that allowed them to learn from every battle and share that knowledge instantly. Admiral Kethvar prepared to give the order to retreat when space itself began to tear apart in front of them. The first thing he noticed was the silence. The Vrex bioships, which had been screaming with alien voices as they attacked, suddenly went quiet. Their collective consciousness seemed confused, uncertain for the first time since the battle began. Then came the rifts. Space opened up like someone was cutting through reality with invisible knives. The tiers in space-time glowed with colors that had no names, energies that made his instruments scream warnings about impossible readings. What emerged from those rifts defied every law of physics that Admiral Kethvar knew. Ships that were clearly artificial but looked like they had been grown from crystallized light itself. Their hulls seemed to be made of materials that bent light around them, making them appear both solid and transparent at the same time. Some were small and graceful like dancers. Others were massive beyond comprehension. One looked like an entire city floating through space. The largest vessel, which dwarfed even the biggest Vrex bioship, positioned itself between the Council fleet and their attackers. Its hull pulsed with gentle light, and Admiral Kethvar felt a strange sense of calm wash over him just from looking at it. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," he transmitted on all frequencies, though part of him already suspected what the answer would be. The response came not through his communication system but directly into his mind. Every member of every crew heard the same voice speaking in their own language, as if someone was standing right next to them whispering in their ear. "Council races of the Galactic Nexus, we are the human stellar empire. We have monitored your plight. The Vrex consumed our colonies once before. They will not do so again." Admiral Kethvar felt his heart skip several beats. The legends were real. The mythical humans had returned, and they had brought weapons that looked like magic. Captain Yunsu's voice came from the lead human vessel, calm and professional, despite the chaos around them. "Council ships, move to safe distance. We will handle the Vrex threat." What happened next changed Admiral Kethvar's understanding of what was possible in space combat. The human ships did not simply fight, they danced through dimensions that normal physics said did not exist. One moment, a sleek human cruiser was firing at a Vrex bioship. The next moment, it had disappeared completely, only to reappear inside the enemy vessel and emerge from the other side, leaving the bioship collapsing into quantum foam. Captain Bei Su commanded a group of smaller human vessels that seemed to exist in several places at once. They fired weapons that did not travel through space, but simply made their targets cease to exist. When Vrex bioships tried to adapt to the human weapons, the humans changed the fundamental nature of their attacks, targeting not the creatures, matter, but the space-time around them. Commander Oseo's ship phased through a formation of bioships like a ghost passing through walls, leaving trails of energy that caused the enemy vessels to turn inside out and collapse. The Vrex collective consciousness, which had seemed so unified and unstoppable, began to show signs of panic as their adaptive abilities proved useless against weapons that operated on principles they could not understand. Admiral Kethvar watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned completely. The Vrex, who had seemed invincible just minutes before, were being systematically destroyed by beings whose technology was so advanced it looked like pure magic. The Ghost Fleet had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same. As human ships danced through space like deadly angels, Fleet Admiral Park Jin's holographic form appeared on every council vessel still fighting in the battle. His voice carried the weight of ancient sorrow as he began to tell the story that had been hidden for 5,000 years. "You believe this is the first time the galaxy has faced the Vrex," Park Jin said, his image flickering as he diverted processing power to coordinate the battle. "You are wrong. They have done this before, not just to our galaxy, but to 17 others before us." On the main display of Admiral Kethvar's damaged flagship, images began to appear. Holographic recordings showed galaxies that were now empty voids in space, their stars consumed and their planets turned to dust. Each galaxy had once been home to millions of civilizations, billions of species, countless worlds full of life and dreams. The Vrex are not just conquerors, continued Commander Oseo as her phase ship slipped through dimensions to strike at enemy bioships. They are universe eaters. They evolved to consume entire galactic civilizations and grow stronger. From each victory, every species they absorb makes them more intelligent, more adaptable, more dangerous. Admiral Kethavar watched in horror as the recording showed the pattern of destruction. The Vrex would arrive in a galaxy and begin slowly, consuming outer, rim worlds and learning from each civilization they destroyed. They would grow larger and smarter until they could overwhelm any defense, then sweep through the galaxy like a plague of living darkness. Captain Nam Jun's voice came from the massive human dreadnought that was single-handedly holding off 3 bioships the size of moons. Humanity's first encounter with them was 5,000 years ago. We were young, proud, and completely unprepared. The holographic display showed images of human colonies burning as bioships fell from the sky like metallic rain. Cities that had taken centuries to build were consumed in hours. Humans who had thought themselves masters of the galaxy suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that treated them like food. Earth's colonies fell one by one. Fleet Admiral Songhai's voice added from the command ship. Our greatest heroes, our finest minds all absorbed into the Vrex collective consciousness. We watched our own people turn against us. Their knowledge used to make the enemy stronger. Captain Yoon Soo coordinated her squadron's attack on a cluster of bioships while continuing the story. We lost 90% of our stellar empire in the first year. Entire star systems went dark. Our children grew up never seeing sunlight because bioships blocked out the stars. The council representatives listened in stunned silence as they realized the scale of what humanity had endured. They had thought their current losses were catastrophic, but humanity had faced complete extinction and somehow survived. Dr. Kang Min led our scientists in the desperate search for weapons that could fight an enemy that adapted to everything. Park Jin continued. His holographic form showed stress patterns as another human AI consciousness was lost to enemy fire. Traditional physics had failed us. We needed something beyond normal understanding. The display showed human research facilities working frantically as their worlds burned around them. Scientists pushed the boundaries of science itself, developing technologies that operated on principles the Vrex collective could not comprehend or adapt to. We learned to build ships that existed partially outside normal space-time, explained Captain Bei Su, as her vessel demonstrated by phasing through a bioship and emerging completely unharmed. Weapons that attacked matter at the quantum level, engines that could manipulate the fabric of reality itself. Admiral Kethvar noticed that the human ships fought with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. How do you coordinate so perfectly? He asked over the communication channel. We learned from our enemy, Admiral Park Jin replied sadly. The Vrex collective consciousness was their greatest strength, so we developed our own version. But unlike theirs, which consumes and destroys, ours preserves and protects. The battle continued to turn in humanity's favor, as more Vrex bioships were destroyed by weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. But the victory came at a cost. Several human vessels had been lost, their AI minds irreplaceable survivors from humanity's golden age. The final battle was fought here, at the edge of this very star system. Fleet Admiral Songhai said as her ship channeled energies that made nearby stars look dim. We had one chance to stop them before they consumed the core worlds. The holographic display showed the epic battle that had decided the fate of the galaxy. Thousands of human ships fighting against millions of Vrex bioorganisms in a conflict that lasted for months and left entire sectors of space twisted into impossible shapes. 1. But the price was everything we had built. Park Jin's voice carried infinite sadness. To contain the main Vrex force, we had to sacrifice our entire galactic civilization. We built a dimensional prison that required the life force of our empire to maintain. Captain Oseo's ship destroyed the last of the immediate Vrex threat. As she added, the few survivors retreated to Earth. We erased most traces of our presence and left behind only us, the Admiralty AIs, to watch for the Vrex's inevitable return. Admiral Kethavar stared at the tactical display showing the complete destruction of the Vrex Vanguard force. If you defeated them before, why did they return? Because this was only the advanced scout, Park Jin replied grimly. The main Vrex force, trillions of bioships, the absorbed knowledge of 17 galaxies, still lies imprisoned beyond the galactic rim. And after 5,000 years, that prison is beginning to weaken. The silence that followed was deafening as everyone realized the truth. This battle was just the beginning. Captain Yun-Su stood in the great crystal chamber of Zenthari Prime, but now the atmosphere was completely different from the mocking laughter that had filled it just days before. The same representatives who had dismissed human legends as foolish stories now looked at her with a mixture of awe and fear. Some could barely meet her eyes. She wore a simple uniform of deep blue, nothing fancy or intimidating, but everyone in the room knew she represented a power that could reshape the galaxy. Behind her, holographic displays showed the wreckage of the Vrex Vanguard fleet, destroyed so completely that not even debris remained. The immediate threat has been stopped, Captain Yun-Su said, her voice calm and steady. But we all know this was just the beginning. The real Vrex force is still out there, waiting. Admiral Kethavar, his 4 arms showing the bandages from his injuries, spoke first. On behalf of the Altarian Navy, I formally apologize for our disbelief. Your people saved us all, and we repaid you with mockery. Captain Yun-Su nodded graciously. No apology is needed. We understand why you found the legend's hard to believe, but now we must focus on the future, not the past. Ambassador Zixara, speaking from a medical pod that was keeping her alive after her ship was nearly consumed, chittered nervously. What do you want from us? Surely beings with your power could simply take control of the galaxy if you wished? That is exactly what we do not want, Captain Yun-Su replied firmly. Humanity learned long ago that true strength comes not from ruling others, but from protecting them. We offer partnership, not conquest. President Choi Day's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from Earth. His face showed the exhaustion of someone who had not slept in days, but his voice was strong. The Terran Galactic Defense Compact will share our defensive technologies and strategic knowledge, but we have conditions. High Commander Throsk, his massive frame still impressive despite his defeat, leaned forward. Name your terms. First, all member species must end territorial wars between themselves, President Choi Day said. We cannot defend the galaxy while you fight each other. Second, joint research facilities will be established where our scientists work together. Third, integrated military units will train together to prepare for the real threat. Some representatives looked uncomfortable. The Nexus Collective had been at war with the Korthak Empire for over a century. The idea of working together seemed impossible. Dr. Kim Nari, now serving as humanity's chief science coordinator, appeared beside President Choi Day. We know this is difficult, but the Vrex prison is weakening faster than we expected. Our deepest scans show dimensional fractures appearing at the galactic rim. We have perhaps 10 years before the main force breaks free. The number sent a chill through the chamber. 10 years seemed like a long time, but everyone now understood the scale of what they would be facing. Captain Nam Jun's deep voice came from the orbital command station above Zenthari Prime. The first joint facility is already under construction. Human shipyards are working with Altarian engineers to produce vessels that combine our technologies. The results are promising. On the display, images showed ships being built that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. They had the graceful curves of human design, but incorporated alien technologies that made them stronger and more versatile. Korthak armor plating made them nearly indestructible, while Nexus Collective quantum computers gave them processing power that rivaled the human AIs. Commander OCO, now training the first mixed species crews, reported from the training facility on Luna. Integration is proceeding well. Young officers from all species are learning to work together. They call themselves the Galactic Defense Corps. Captain Bei Su added from the research station orbiting Jupiter. We have discovered that each species brings unique advantages. Ethereal seers can detect dimensional weaknesses that our sensors miss. Altarian navigators can plot courses through space-time that we never considered. Even the smallest contributions matter. Admiral Kethvar stood up, his injured arms shaking slightly. The Altarian Navy formally requests to join the compact. We pledge our fleets and our knowledge to the common defense. One by one, other representatives stood to make similar declarations. The Nexus Collective offered their quantum research. The Korthak Empire provided their military expertise. Even the proud ethereal seers agreed to share their mystical knowledge of dimensional physics. Not everyone was happy with the arrangement. Some species struggled with the idea that humanity, which they had never heard of a week ago, was now their protector and guide. Others worried about losing their independence to a defense compact that required such cooperation. But fear of the Vrex overcame pride and suspicion. The recordings of empty galaxies, the demonstration of human power, and the knowledge that worse was coming convinced even the most stubborn representatives. Fleet Admiral Park Jin's holographic form appeared one final time, looking older and more tired than before. The loss of several AI consciousnesses had diminished him, but his voice still carried authority. Children of all species are already learning together in our schools. They study not just science and warfare, but art and philosophy from every culture. They will grow up knowing that diversity is strength, not weakness. Captain Yoon Soo looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. The legends your ancestors told were not just stories, they were warnings and promises. The warning has come true. The Vrex have returned. Now we must fulfill the promise that when darkness threatens to consume everything, light will rise to meet it. Outside the crystal chamber, ships from dozens of species patrolled together while their crews trained for the war that was coming. The galaxy had laughed at the legends, but now those myths had become the foundation of their hope. The real battle was still years away, but for the first time since the Vrex returned, the galaxy was ready to fight back.